she would lock this person in a closet and not let them out so they would stay pure. Hi everyone, it's Kiki. Thanks for hanging out. Today's video is about why I left the church. So I'll be talking about some reasons, some things that happened, some good memories, some bad memories, turning points, of why I left. So if this sounds like what you want to watch, then keep watching. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing as it helps my little channel grow. I'm gonna preface this video by saying if church works for you, then stay in church. I'm not advocating for people to leave church. I do believe that there is importance in having that structure and those teachings, and I feel like some people need it more than others. Like there's lots of important rules in there, and I feel like some people, if they didn't have the church structure around, they would be worse off. I'm not hating against church. This is just my example and what I went through, and it just didn't work for me. And I'm happy that I left. It was very hard in the beginning, for sure. Let me read some things I wrote. I wrote down here, my memory is fuzzy because I was going through a lot of turmoil at home, a lot of abuse and neglect. So I didn't actually process a lot of things. I had a lot of insomnia and everything was really hazy. But as the days go on, or as the years go on and I heal and I'm in a safe space, I've actually noticed that memories resurface. So I might have to revisit this again later. Oh, I wrote down here, I have some good memories and I also have some bad memories. We'll start in the beginning. So I do have some good memories about it. When I was younger, I maybe was 3 or 4 years old. We were in church, and then one of the members there was teaching me the song that goes, walk, 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 walk in the light. Walk, 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 walk in the light. You know, that song, I don't know if it's off key. It's been so long. But I did learn that song, and that was a good memory. Okay, so I actually went to put on lip gloss because I just saw my reflection in the laptop and my lips looked really pale. Anyways, it's this random purple-y one from MAC. I don't know which color it is. Its color's gone. So after that first memory, I actually didn't go to church for a long time after that. And then when I was 13 or so, my parents got invited to a Filipino concert at a Filipino church. And then we went to go see someone perform. His name was Ray and Fuentes. I don't know if you guys remember who that is, if you've ever been in the Filipino church or community. But we were there at the church. And then afterwards, my dad was like, do you like this church? And I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone there. I wasn't allowed to like look around or anything. And he was asking me this question. I remember saying, yeah, it smells nice, I guess, because I didn't know what else to say. But I was like, it smells nice. We started going to church from when I was 13 after that service, that same Filipino church, up until I was 19. I didn't know any different back then because for me, I was so desperate to go outside and have fun and make friends that I would go to church. I know that sounds dumb. My parents were really, really strict, and I wasn't allowed to do anything. I had to be home by 3:30 p.m. I wasn't allowed to go out with my friends in the evenings or on the weekends. I wasn't allowed to go to a house. I wasn't allowed to go to a sleepover. I wasn't allowed to use the phone. I wasn't allowed to use a computer. Like, I wasn't really allowed to do anything. It was very restrictive and authoritarian, but also at the same time neglectful and abusive. So it's like very weird. And it was all under the filter of they loved me. Oh, I had to also tell you, the first time I ever saw a movie was King Kong. And I like snuck out of the house to see it when I was 18. Yeah, I wasn't even allowed to see that. It wasn't the movie. It was me going out. I don't know why they were so strict. It's so weird. I know they were trying to protect me, but that's like crazy because my sister was allowed to go out. So I don't know why they were doing all these things, like keeping me inside and yelling at me and then doing all these churchy things. Like, it was just like, ugh, it was like a prison. I hated it. It was like, I don't know what they were trying to do to me. It was abusive. There were so many things that were abusive. I wrote down that I made some friends. I did make some good friends there. Barry and Christy, if you guys are watching, hi, I miss you guys. I was so excited to have some social exposure and meet other people that I sort of looked forward to church in the beginning of it. I made some good friends there, and I did learn some things. Like, I learned some lessons. I observed a lot of the people there. I saw different personalities and people that I didn't want to be like. I also saw a lot of incongruencies, and it made my brain go, huh? I'm not the type of person to have that blind Christian faith. You can't just tell me this is the way it is and you have to follow it. I need to know the reason why. Otherwise, like, I have an internal thing where, like, I need to know. I can't just blindly accept something. I need to see data. I need to know reasons. It's not just because, or just because I say so. And because I did have that tendency and I asked a lot of questions, I was labeled as a problem child because I needed more information to process things. I couldn't just be this obedient child who accepted things. But my brain was growing. Like, when a teen's brain is growing, you need to be able to consistently put input in there. Or when children's brains are growing, you need to consistently be putting input in there because it's growing. It needs information. It needs data. It needs input. It needs to figure things out. Growing up, I was very inquisitive, and that never changed. I'm still inquisitive now. I love learning. I am a lifelong learner. I decided to go back to school for my bachelor's in science because I wanted to learn, and I thought getting a degree, I thought that is the best way to learn about a specific topic, and I decided to learn about physics. I didn't know anything about it, and I'm almost done. So for my whole life, I've been very inquisitive. That's never changed, and that's never gonna change. So Fridays, we would have Bible studies at people's houses. It would be at a different house every week. And after I turned 15, I was allowed to join the adult Bible study. And I'm having flashbacks right now. I remember I would ask so many questions because it didn't make any sense to me. Like the explanation of the Holy Spirit, the Father and the Son. And I would ask questions like, if it's all the same, why did this have to happen? Why did this even have to happen in the first place? Like, all these questions I was asking were irritating the pastors, deacons, and the wives that were teaching all the time. They would be really irritated because I never just wanted to listen to the story and take it as face value. Oh yeah, I would ask questions about parables that were unanswered. Like, why did God have to kill all those people to make a point? Why did he have to kill? I asked all these questions. I asked, why was a snake in the Garden of Eden anyways if God made this garden? I also asked questions like, why did God have to send his son, which was himself, back to earth to die for this thing that God made up? And I'm gonna tell you, yeah, they were mad at me. All of it didn't make sense, but there's a lot of incongruencies and things that I asked about. So even on Sunday schools, they would say things like rock music is bad and it's the music of the devil. That was such a conservative view. And I asked them, and I said, if you think rock music is the music of the devil, then how come we have rock music for our worship service? Is that not the music of the devil, like you were saying? Can you make this make sense? And I remember getting kicked out. I was getting kicked out quite a bit. I had a lot of questions. And, I'm the type of person that will read the terms and conditions. When you read the terms and conditions, then you get to see how what you're signing up with works, and then you can participate fairly. So another memory that just came up is I read the Bible. Like, I read it. Like, I didn't just read it the way they read it at church. So at church, what they would do is they would suggest a scripture for us to read and to study for, like, Sunday school or like Friday Bible study, or we would read a passage together during the church service. It would be the same passages over and over again. And for me, I'm like, we have this massive book in front of us. Why are we reading the same sections over and over again? And so I bought a Bible. And I remember being at Costco and my parents were like, you want to buy this Bible? They were so happy that I wanted to buy a Bible. So I remember I bought it, and I read the first 3 books, Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus. And I remember just reading it and thinking, wow, these are great stories. And I just went, why aren't we reading other things? But I was seeing like incongruencies in the passages. So I should list the incongruencies that I found in another video. I need to keep this one short, like maybe under 10-15 minutes. But I found some incongruencies in there, and I would raise these questions during Bible study or Sunday school and kicked out again. Actually, one day I asked about women leading services because I thought, hey, why don't we like switch it up? Men always leading services is so boring. They're so mundane. They're not charismatic. They didn't give me an answer. I was like, why is it only men? What about women? Why can't women lead? I even asked the pastor, I was like, what about like, can God be a woman? How come he's always a guy? Why do we always say that it's a guy? Like, we don't know what he looks like or she looks like. What if God is not even a person? And these are the types of questions that they would want to hammer out of me. They were like not happy with me. I would ask questions like, I remember this one question. How does God know who to let into heaven? And they were saying, oh, only the people that accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior will be accepted into heaven. And I go, but what if they're still good people? What if they just don't want to go to church? Or what if they didn't know about church and apparently they'll all go to hell? And I was like, but what about the people that didn't know? I don't think that's fair. What if a bad person was like, I'm gonna accept Jesus? Does that mean they go to heaven? That doesn't make sense to me. I wrote down here, I hated that it was cold there. I was always cold because I was underfed, and also our home was cold since we didn't use heat at home or very little at all. I was very cold during the winter. I was a very cold person, and my parents didn't turn on the heat. I think they were trying to save money, but I was very cold all the time, and church was also cold. It was very painful for my body to be cold. I didn't like that experience. And when I'm cold, I notice the difference between my brain and my energy and how I am, how I speak. When I'm cold, I'm literally like this. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that version of myself. We didn't have a lot of food at home, so that was one thing. I would get my meals from school or my grandma. Yeah, my church was really controlling. I was told, like, I don't know where this came from, but I was told I couldn't eat lamb. Lamb is delicious. I find out, the first time I had lamb, I was 20, and I was like, what is this? Why have I not been having this my whole life? I felt like I was missing out. Because the Lamb of God, and I was told I couldn't eat lamb because of that symbol. But then I saw the pastor eating lamb one day when we went to a Greek restaurant, all of us together, and seeing him eat lamb, I think when I was 17 or 18 or so, gave me the courage to eat lamb and try it when I was 20. But how controlling and weird is that? I think that was my parents. They were trying to like really follow this church stuff. I think they needed the structure to help with their lives, because I know they were really emotionally immature. They shouldn't have had children at that time, and they needed some guidance, and they were immigrants to a new country, so I totally understand why they would need that. And there's like the social aspect too, other Filipinos there. They weren't really making a lot of money, and there wasn't a lot of food at home. And this one thing that really irked me is that my dad would go and buy food for the church, and it was out of his own pocket. He wasn't like getting money from the church and they were saying, hey, can you do this for us? Like, he would pay. And I remember going with him and thinking, I'm hungry all the time. Yes, I'm a child and I'm growing. No, there's no food in the house. And I know you need to feed these people at church, but what about me? My whole life, like with my parents and my church, was like, I didn't really get to have a say. I didn't really have, like, I wasn't really part of it. I was just a participant and forced to participate, and I didn't like it at all. Like, it just made no sense to me. You know, my parents, they would buy Subway sandwiches for after Bible study or for Sunday school, but my sister and I, we were always really hungry and cold. Another thing about these sandwiches is we were not allowed to eat them. We were not allowed to touch them. But these sandwiches, the purpose of these sandwiches were for after Sunday school. So I would sneak away from Sunday school when it was almost over, and I would go into the room where the food was, and I would eat like a 6-inch sub. And so what my parents did is they cut it up into little pieces so people could share. I think there were like 4 subs or whatnot, but I literally ate a 6-inch sub, and I felt so guilty, but I was so hungry. There was nothing I could do. I didn't have breakfast. There was no breakfast at home. Like, so on Sundays, there'd be no breakfast. I'd get up, get ready for church, and I'd be starving. I'm a growing teenager, so I would steal a 6-inch sub, and then I'd have to wait till after the service was done. And when the service was done, then we'd all go out as a church together to eat, but then my dad would pay for that. So I'm sort of confused as to why that was going on, as why he would pay for all of that, and I'd be hungry this whole time. I figured out ways to get food. I was creative and resourceful, let me tell you. Oh yeah, I was sick a lot. So I was sick a lot growing up because I was cold and underfed, and I was under a lot of stress, and people were yelling at me all the time and hitting me, but I would be forced to attend it to save face because I have to do it for God, and people are gonna judge my family. Oh, it was so crazy. Oh my God. So there was a time when I had to start playing the piano for the church. So there was this other kid there, and he was playing the Doxology. The Doxology would be played in the middle of the church service. It would be like to tell us half of it's done. So we would all stand up, he would go play the piano, we would sing with the piano out of the same book, it was the same song, and he didn't want to do it anymore. Actually, he stopped going. I have another story. So he stopped playing, and then they asked me, they're like, hey, you can play the piano, can you play the Doxology? And I was like, sure. I just needed, I feel like the reason I said yes was because I was so bored out of my mind that I was like, yeah, I will participate. I'll be a willing participant and a willing contributor and do something. So I played that, and so that was my church career for a little while. But what I really wanted to do in the church was I wanted to sing. I wanted to sing for the tithes and offering. I wanted to get up there and do a solo like some of the other singers were doing because I enjoyed singing. That was something that I wanted to do, and I knew it would have brought me joy. But I had to play the Doxology on the piano, and that's fine. That was a skill that I had, and I actually ended up enjoying that for a little bit. I actually didn't want to play piano after a while. Yeah, I wanted to sing, but only a few select were allowed to be up front during the worship service. It was really weird. It was the same group all the time singing the songs in front of the church. They were called the praise team, and I'm glad they took it seriously. I know that the younger people that were in it didn't really want to do it every single week, but they were forced to do it every week. And the organizer who set everything up always guilt trips people, and they'd say things like, do it for God, this is for God. So everyone was guilted into doing so many things. I actually wanted to be a part of the praise team because I thought I could really contribute, and I wanted to play more than one song every week, the same song, and I wanted to be up there because I wanted to have fun. I wanted to bring life into the church. The church was so boring, it was so dead, and they were playing these slow ballads and quiet songs all the time, and I was like, I could probably play some fast gospel music or something, but that didn't work. That didn't fly for them. I was able to do the song for the tithes and offering finally once, and I only did it one time, and I really enjoyed it. It was called Un Lugar song. It's a Christian song. I sang that one song, and that was really fun, and too bad I didn't get to do it again. There's some shady things that happen, the tithes, the giving, people would give money to fund the church, they were stolen. And the reason I know this is because at the end of each service, they would take all the envelopes and they would count it up, and there would be people that would give money, they put in envelopes, write their name. I was not giving it without envelopes. And one day I was like, I'm gonna copy these people, I'm gonna put it in the envelope, write my name. So I did, and then that year I got a statement saying I donated this money, and I was like, the extra money that's not in an envelope is being taken by these people that are counting the money. And that's why they're so excited to count the money. One time, this lady and another guy had an affair, and the messed up thing was they kicked out the lady, but they kept the guy in the church as a member. And I went, how is that fair? How did this happen? And what's going on? And why don't they kick them both out? Why did they have favoritism? What's going on? And also, why did this happen? What's the reason? But they didn't. I thought in my head, isn't that a Bible verse or something? Well, not adultering, but yet you keep this one guy here. So there's a lot of hypocrisy that I also saw in the church. I experienced it as well. I remember they would take advantage of kindness of people a lot. I didn't really like that at all. It wasn't very spiritual. It was definitely human beings becoming empowered and getting drunk with power and abusing their power. Yeah, definitely. It definitely wasn't for me. So the church also had a lot of gossiping. There wasn't a lot of spiritual teachings or practices being shared. And there was a lot of misogyny and patriarchy. I hated going to church because I found it so boring that I would volunteer to take care of children. I don't like kids, but I'd rather take care and be around crying babies in the nursery than listen to the service. I think they caught on that I didn't like listening to the service, so they installed a speaker into the nursery and turned it on during the service, so I had to listen, but I would still figure out a way to turn it off. People caught on, and I wasn't allowed to babysit anymore. So when I wasn't allowed to babysit anymore, halfway during the service, I would excuse myself to go to the washroom. I would just go to Starbucks, and I would come back, have a coffee in my hand, and I wouldn't care. I'd be like, whatever, I didn't want to stay. One thing they made us do that I really hated is they made my group, so for Sunday school, they'd split you up in two children, teenagers or whatever, and adults. And the teenagers for Sunday school, for all these groups, they would make us memorize Bible verses, and then we would go to the front and then speak those Bible verses. And I wanted to make it fun, so I'd say, hey, this week let's all wear white. Hey, this week let's all wear red. And then we would try so hard to get the Bible verses perfect, and we would high five, because we were literally so deprived of fun that was fun. But also I was competitive. Those Bible verses though, they're still in my head today, in the songs. Oh my god. Sometimes the songs play, it's just looping in my head. I need to get rid of it. The whole church and people were always telling me I was going to go to hell for something. They said it so many times that I didn't even care anymore, that it didn't even scare me. Being in church was hell. It was so boring. I was like, you know what? I'm already in hell. I'm already in hell now. My life sucks. My mom was hitting me. She's not going to remember. She's probably going to watch this video and be like, no, I never hit you. Yeah, remember that time when you took the pen and you... Oh yeah, there was a lot of purity culture there as well. I remember when I was 14 or so, there was a story about Jessica Simpson saving herself for marriage, and she got a purity ring, and then for some reason I had to get a purity ring to promise I wasn't going to have sex. But when you're 13 or 14, you've never had sex before, you don't even know what's going on, to make a promise like that, that's a lot. Aside from the ring thing, I started developing, and that was wrong. And I'm I'm not doing anything. I'm literally just existing. I'm just developing, and I didn't even have big boobs or a big butt, but I was going from a stick to being a little curvy, and that was wrong. And I would wear the same clothes that my little sister would wear, and they were not slutty clothes, but I wasn't allowed to wear them just because I had curves. It was such a double standard. I don't know what it was that triggered a lot of feelings inside of people, but I symbolized a lot of the bad things in church, even though I wasn't a bad person. I was a scapegoat for a lot of things because I spoke up, and I didn't stop speaking up. I didn't stop speaking up, and then blaming me for things didn't deter me from asking questions, because these are literally burning questions inside. If I didn't ask, my soul was like, you have to ask. Like, I think it's my neurodivergency. So yeah, back to the purity culture. I wasn't allowed to wear tank tops. Even in summer, I wasn't allowed to wear tank tops because I had boobs, even though I didn't have big boobs. But it was fine for everyone else because they didn't have boobs. So it was really strange to me. Oh yeah, purity culture, there's like a lot of gossiping about who was having sex and stuff. Like, it was really weird about people meddling in each other's personal lives like that. There was one time in Sunday school, this lady was teaching and we were talking to her about how did you date growing up in the Philippines? Because that was something I asked. I don't think it was Bible related, but I wanted to ask because we were talking about purity, I think. I think the theme of the lesson was purity. And so I asked her, how did you date? How did you meet people when you were in the Philippines? And she was saying, oh, well, I would be at home, and then if I had a date, they would have to ask my parents for permission, and we would hang out in the living room, and they would supervise. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then she ended with, because this lady had 2 sons, she didn't have any daughters, and then she said, if she had birth, this is what she said, if I had a daughter, I would lock her up in the closet, because that is how important the purity, the virginity of this person was that she would lock this person in a closet and not let them out so they would stay pure, which is like crazy in my mind. Like, that's crazy. I didn't think the church was teaching anybody any life skills. It taught them to be delusional and powerless, and let me explain. It was really nice going there. We had community, but they would just say to pray about things, and to me, that is so empty. Yes, the words that you say can change your subconscious and can really power you, but you need to follow those words with actions, and that was never taught. It was just very delusional, wishing, magical thinking, and just hoping things would work out. And when things did not work out, let me tell you, they were like, you are a bad person and you deserve this to happen because you didn't pray enough. Like, that doesn't make any sense. If you're walking and say you get hit by a car with the pedestrian light on, you are a bad person because God wanted that to happen. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why? Why would this all-powerful God want to look only at our planet and look at specific people and be like, I'm going to hurt you today because blah, 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 blah. We have this entire universe, like, don't you think God wants to be doing other things? Like, birthing other stars, like checking out other planets, like flying around. I don't even know if it's a person. I don't even know. But honestly, the way it was depicted as God was this very spiteful thing that needed money, needed praise, needed XYZ to be fulfilled, otherwise he would smite you, is like, that person is a very egotistical, insecure God, if that's the God that they're following. That doesn't make any sense to me because, and I'm not like the best person in the world, but even I'm like, if somebody doesn't want to do something for me, that's okay. Like, I don't get bothered by it. They probably don't want to, and that's fine. Like, I'm not going to hit them. I'm not going to drown them. So a lot of the times the Bible verses were like used against me. There's this one about like children obeying your parents or something like that, but I do remember recently that seeing that verse had had a part 2, and it's like obey your parents and parents obey your children or something like that. I'll have to take a look. I'll like write it down. Oh yeah. At Bible study, one person looked at me and they said to my mom, your children are so well behaved, they're so quiet. And like, I literally was sitting there like this. And I was sitting there broken. I remember feeling broken and being broken. I remember that week had like a lot of negative things happen. And like, I don't know why they valued quiet children. I think to them, children are to be seen and not heard. I was pressured to be baptized. I didn't want to, but I was baptized with everybody. I thought that was a little weird, but because it doesn't really exist, I did the ceremony, but it doesn't mean anything. So I should get an unbaptized certificate. I think that'd be really funny. So after I started playing the Doxology, there was a time when people didn't want to sing anymore. And so the organizer lady would go around being like, next week I need you to sing a song, do it for God, like this is for God, please, God wants this or whatever. There was a point where we were like, we don't want to do this anymore, we don't want to sing, we don't want to come. People stopped showing up, and then one day somebody didn't show up, and then they asked me, they're like, hey, can you just like play a song? This person didn't show up. And I was like, you know what, I'd love to do it. I'd love to play a song and play something other than the Doxology. Okay, I need variety in my life. I ended up playing the piano every week for the tithes and offering for about 2 years or so, and it sort of got annoying to me because I was always second best. And so when you go to church, they hand you these pamphlets and it tells you what's going on, like the songs that we're singing, the passages that we're reading, who's going to be on for the tithes and offering, the sermon, who's going to give the sermon, what's it going to be about, all that stuff. And my name was never on there. I was always the person that they thought they were going to have for that week. So I was always second best. And I was like, I hate being second best. I don't want to be second best. So there was this one point, I feel like this is when I snapped and everything started going downhill. Like I couldn't take the pressure anymore. Somebody didn't show up, surprise, surprise, and they had asked me to play a song. And I started playing a song and my emotions got the best of me and I stopped mid-song. And I literally was like, I don't want to play this tithes and offerings anymore. You guys always make me play it. I'm always second best. My name is never on the program. I got up and I started crying and I ran out. Yeah. I love my emotions for coming up and empowering me that way and helping me to stand up for myself. Yeah, I was always second best. And it was then at that moment when I even said, I'm not playing piano for you guys anymore because you don't appreciate me at all. So after that moment when I had that outburst, I will have to admit, I really wish I could have been a little bit more mature about it, but I was like 17 or 18, so what do you expect? I did pretty good for a 17 or 18-year-old. I had voiced my concerns to my parents after that I didn't really want to be going anymore because I really felt like I wasn't getting anything out of it. It was so boring. I wasn't learning anything about, like, I really felt like I was wasting my time. And so my parents told me, like, fine, when you're 18, you can make a decision and you can decide whether or not you want to go to church. I had my breaking point when I was 17 or 18 or so. I can't remember exactly when, with the piano. And then I turned 18 and then I was like, yes, I'm 18 now. I can finally decide whether or not I still want to go to church. I used the excuse, because I had gotten into a college for nutrition, I used the excuse that I have to do homework right now. That I don't want to go to church, I don't want to go to Friday Bible study because I want to do homework. And I would rather do homework than go to church on Fridays and Sundays. Yeah, so I literally stopped showing up and I stopped participating regularly, and that was so good for me. This is really fuzzy. I have to think about this because I don't know what happened. When did I move out? I think that's another story for another time, but I had moved out of my house and I didn't want to go to church anymore, and I didn't have to, but the circles were all like sort of running together, and I would still meet people from the church and they would guilt trip me and try to like get me to go back. They say they miss me and that I have to do it for God and all this stuff. And I didn't know it was toxic back then. Like they didn't respect my choices, but I still felt like every time that I did see them that they're trying to like manipulate me to go back into the church. And I started going to makeup school. So I went to makeup school, I learned how to do my makeup, I was doing prosthetics and also movie stuff. And I was trying to set up a business because I wanted to do faces. I was doing makeup for people and I never got paid for a dime, not a penny. I never got paid. They wanted me to do makeup for them. I would wake up early, but they would want me to do it and they would just take. Like they never thought, maybe I should donate some money. This girl's like spending money on her kid just so she can do makeup for me. And she's waking up, making time out of my schedule. And then one day I go to get my makeup done at the NARS counter, I believe. At the NARS or Makeup Forever. But one of the girls, I was talking to her about how this is what I want to do. I'm in school. This is the stuff, blah, blah, blah. This is my portfolio. This is what I'm learning. I'm having so much fun. And so the girl at the makeup counter was like, hey, all these people They're supposed to be helping you. And if your friends and family are not helping you, they're not your people. And I was like, yeah, I can't seem to get my business up and running. And she said to me that if your friends and families are the ones that should be paying for your services, it was like another nail in the coffin about why I needed to completely change circles and change groups of people, because I did, now that I'm out of it, really felt like it was very crabs in the bucket, very gossipy, and it wasn't very supportive. In fact, it was quite exploitive. They would just take, and I didn't like that. I knew everyone had come from a third world country. They don't have like extra money, but nobody thought maybe I should feed her. Maybe I could pick her up and drop her off. Like none of that stuff. But yeah, this is why I left the church. And you know, I have spirituality where I believe I'm connected to everything in the universe, that I have power. I am empowered, and the choices I make, paired with luck, can result in a better life. And it's not through praying and sitting and doing nothing. It's not through those culty things. I feel like I was in a cult. Now that I'm out of it, and now that I have better friends and I have a different life, comparing the church experience the church was very controlling, was very limiting. Oh yeah, so for me, like my moral compass is do no harm, pretty much. And I don't need to have religion just to tell me to be a good person. Like I'm choosing to be a good person on my own. I just feel like that's not necessary. I'm not saying religion is wrong, it's just not for me. And I'm more spiritual, and I have a spiritual relationship with everything, and I like that a lot better. And honestly, just stay what works for you. If you find happiness in the church, stay there. But if you feel like you're wasting your time, listen to yourself and find something that is worth your time, because we're literally gonna die one day, and then that's it for this simulation, this iteration, and this life. So yeah, to sum it up, that's part one, why I left the church, and I will do a part two about how my life has changed after leaving the church, how I found like friends and community and being accepted, and yeah, and how my life has changed for the better. Anyways, I hope you guys liked that video. That was my church story.